Hello and welcome to Knitting on the Lake. My name is Kelly and I'm your host. Thanks so much for joining me today. I have a couple of things on the agenda. One is a review of the most recent Farm Fiber Day at the Wayland Winter Farmers Market in Wayland, Massachusetts. And that is a little mini fiber festival that I attended this past weekend. So I'll share a little bit of information about that as well as everything that I brought home from my day there. And I also wanted to do just a quick FO check. I have one finished object that I wanted to just sneak in and share with you because I get really excited when I finish a project. I can't help it, so I just need to kind of preempt regularly scheduled programming for that. And I also wanted to share another set of recent acquisitions that is not from Farm Fiber Day, but from one of my local yarn stores that has to do with a newly minted knitter who needs a little startup kit to get her going. So we're going to talk about that. And first of all, we'll start out by I still have the funky nail thing, but they're starting to grow back, thankfully. I think maybe in about a month I'll be able to have normal looking nails there that can get the regular manicure that I get. But anyway, so sorry, until then, I'm just gonna have to deal. What I'm wearing is the Pianta Pullover, and the pattern is by Lavanya Patricella. And this is a brioche sweater. It is the first brioche garment that I ever made. I did it as a test knit last, I think late summer into fall. And it is knit sideways. So the construction is really interesting. It's like a big rectangle. The body is a big rectangle with like a hole in the middle for the neck. And then you of course later pick up the neck stitches, and then the arms are picked up and knit in the round and garter stitch. But the two yarns that I used for this are both from Spun Right Round, which is a really incredible, super artistic hand dyer in the Rochester, New York area, which is where I am from originally. There are two different weights of yarn used in this pattern because of just the like thickness and squishiness of brioche. Like today in my house, I'm actually a little warm, a little too warm in this sweater, but I wanted to break it out before it gets even warmer. But anyway, to kind of reduce the weight, one of the yarns is in DK and one is in a worsted weight. Mine is actually probably more of an worsted to Aran weight. So this is Spun Right Round's Merino Aran, and the colorway is Pavement. It's just like a black and white speckle. And the other yarn is called Squish DK, and this yarn is in the colorway Envy, which is fitting for a green yarn. But I don't know if you can see it very well on camera, but this yarn has a really interesting variation of color. You can kind of see it here. Some of the greens are a little more blue leaning and some are a little more green leaning. Believe it or not, this is a variegated, maybe I guess you could call it a tonal yarn, but it just has this like shimmery quality to it because of this like slight little vibration between those two green colors. I have extra and I know I'm going to do something really cool with it. I don't know exactly what, but I think alone this is going to look really amazing too. Together with this, I mean, I think it speaks for itself. This is the sweater that I wore to Rhinebeck in the morning when it was really cold, and it kept me super warm without a jacket. I had like a long sleeve shirt on underneath, and I'm remembering now how warm it was outside and why I'm like almost sweating right now at this point inside in the middle of March. So I'll put a link to my Ravelry project page as well as a link to those two yarns and the pattern page on Ravelry. Again, this is called the Pianta Pullover, and the pattern is from Lavanya Patricella. All right, so let's get to the main topic for today, which is a little recap of Farm Fiber Day at the Wayland Winter Farmers Market in Wayland, Massachusetts. And this is an event that is held a couple of times during the winter. This one was on Sunday, March 9th, and the hours were 10:30 till 3. The previous event they had was on January 19th, I think probably the same hours. That happens to be my birthday. I was actually out of town coming back home that day, and I did not make it home in time to go to the festival. So I wanted to make it a priority to attend this one because I don't think another one is on the docket for a little while, at least with the winter farmers market schedule. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. This event is held at Russell's Garden Center, which is a pretty expansive like nursery and a place where you can buy house plants and anything related to plants and house plants, potting soil, pots, tools, anything really for the garden. You can find it there, hence the name. But they find all these interesting little nooks and crannies to have vendor booths in this space, including some that were outdoors, some that were indoors, and some that were sort of in between, like in greenhouse-ish kind of areas. And I was actually really surprised by how many vendors there were. I don't know the exact number, but I'll show on a split screen the map of the vendors just to give you an idea of, not that it matters where they were in the floor plan, but just to give you a sense of the scale of this festival. Interestingly enough, there is no charge for admission, and so you can go, you can browse, and there's really kind of no commitment. This festival is only about a 20-minute drive from where I live, so it's kind of a no-brainer to go and check it out. So I've been to a few fiber festivals prior to this one, including Rhinebeck last fall, which I mentioned. But I have to say this one was really fantastic. Not surprisingly, it does lean pretty heavily toward farm yarn, like unspun fiber, and other like farm-made products like soaps and things that are made with wool byproducts, things that are felted. I feel like I'm in the $10,000 pyramid right now. Natural dye stuffs and dye kits. And there were also vendors selling things kind of unrelated to knitting, like wines and jewelry and ice cream and, food trucks and things like that. Skincare is another big category. And then of course there's notions and spinning tools and, project bags and things of that nature. My focus was mainly on yarn in terms of what I thought I might look at, but I have to say I didn't really have a plan going into this fiber festival, which I usually try to have some kind of plan so that I can be focused and I don't get too tempted and tantalized by all of the cool stuff there. I really try to at least have a little list of things that I'm looking for or might want to, add to my stash for future project that I have that I want to do. But unfortunately, I really didn't have much of a plan. So once I got there, I kind of started exploring, and I realized I really wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to, learn a little bit more about farm yarns. I have bought some farm yarns in the past. I haven't used much of it yet, but I do tend to buy a lot of commercial yarn, both hand-dyed and, commercially dyed. I just I have a lot to learn in the realm of, sheep breeds and, different types of wool, different ways of spinning wool. And, I do also have a really strong interest in supporting local businesses, local farms, and economies. I think it's really important. It's something that I really tried to do in my interior design business as well. And so, this seems to really go hand in hand with that. It is an area that, it gets back to the heritage of knitting. And I think it's really important to not only have knowledge of it, but just to be, at some level close to it as a hand knitter. Now, something that I do not do, and I currently don't have any desire to do, is spinning or weaving or any of the kind of not tangential, but related fiber arts. I am really pretty exclusively a knitter at this point. I do have a plan to maybe dip my toe into crochet this year, but my desire for that is actually very project specific. I don't, I will never say never to anything, because there's been many times in my life where I have changed course in ways that were completely out of the blue and unexpected, and I could have never predicted. But at this point in my sort of knitting career, I am very much a knitter, 100%. I'm interested in all of those other bits and pieces of the fiber arts, more as a spectator than as a participant or a purveyor. Hey there, this is On My Way to Editing, Kelly, with a quick little interlude to let you know something that I forgot to mention in my podcast recording, which was that there was a whole set of vendors at this event that I somehow missed, and including wherever the section was that had Junction Fiber Mill, Meadow-Fed Lamb, and Wing and a Prayer Farm, some of the most premier, well-known vendors. I completely somehow did not find them. And this was probably a combination of just my space cadet way of going through the festival, as well as just the limited time that I had. I wasn't able to make it until around 1:30, and maybe even later, like 1:40, and the festival wrapped up at 3:00. I was in my car at 2:55, and I realized, oh crap, I think I completely missed a bunch of vendors, and I knew at that point there wasn't going to be time to go back and visit them. So I just sort of said, oh well, and I'm sure I'll see them at the next festival. It's a shame that I wasn't able to check them out, but I didn't want to neglect to mention that because, my experience may have been different if I did make it in to visit those vendors. It just is what it is. I don't think it was a question of the organization of the festival. They put up a map. I just chose not to really look at the map. I just sort of walked around and explored on my own. So I'm sorry that I can't review a complete experience, because I was only there less than an hour and 20 minutes, and I clearly missed the boat on a lot of vendors, and kind of pretty important ones as well. But it definitely wasn't a waste of time. I really enjoyed what I was able to accomplish there, and I hope you enjoy the rest of my recap. Okay, so now I'm going to share with you what I brought home from the Fiber Festival. And I will start with the things that are actually not yarns. And I would say there was a pretty equal split of things that I bought that were yarn and things that were not yarn. My first purchase was a bar of handmade soap, and this is from Good Karma Farm, and the label is branded Good Pharma Soap Company. This is a company and a farm based in Bridgeton, Maine, and I was aware of them as a yarn maker, I know they're pretty well known for this particular sock knitting machine that they have. I got to see it a little bit in action. I didn't take any pictures, but it looked pretty cool. But anyway, I love kind of looking at handmade soap at farmers markets, and this one smelled so good. It's called Citrus Clove with French Clay, and I can't I can't share the smell with you, but it really, for me, is evoking like a holiday smell. Those pomanders that you could make with an orange and you would stick the cloves in and like hang it on your Christmas tree. That's what it reminds me of. And for me, that is the good kind of holiday smell that I like. The kind that I tend not to like as much is the like evergreen, fir, balsam kind of smells. I really don't prefer those. Juniper, another example of one that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. But this one, love this. And I think it's a really nice balance. It's neither masculine nor feminine. It's kind of just right in the middle and everyone can enjoy it. So anyway, Good Karma Farm soap. And this is Citrus Clove with French Clay. I'm always on the lookout for new project bags. I feel like I have some gaps in my stash of project bags. One is a gap of not having bags that are suitable for larger projects like a sweater, for example, when it starts really growing in size or you have to carry around a lot of balls of yarn. Right now I'm tending to use, just like canvas tote bags for that, and that seems to be working fine for now. And so I'm not like aggressively pursuing any specialty project bags for that purpose. But as I start to get really fired up about starting to explore sock knitting, I realize that none of my project bags are really suitable for smaller projects where you might only need one ball of yarn and a very small item on your needles. So I look a lot at project bags, but I'm very particular and I don't buy a lot because I'm really like a textile oriented person. And so the fabric and color and design and the textures and all of that stuff is really important to me. And, I know there's a lot out there, so I try to be patient and wait until I find something that I really like. And I really liked this. So this is like an egret pattern, I think. And the bag is made by Kitten Fiber Arts. I hope I got that right. And I met the woman who makes them and she was delightful. I was hoping they would have a flamingo bag because my mom is obsessed with flamingos. The closest thing they had was an egret, but I was like, oh, I guess I'll have to take that one off your hands. But the design of this bag, as you can see, I don't know if there's a name for this, but one handle is longer than the other. So the idea is that the smaller handle is used to kind of just be a little cinch for the longer one. And then you carry it like so, I really do think there is a word for this. And if I think of it, I'll put it up on the screen. But it just is like a little pouch. And it might be hard for you to see the scale. Maybe I'll bring it back closer to me, but it is pretty small. And it's the kind of project bag that I can throw into a larger tote bag, which is exactly how I travel with my knitting. And in some cases, I'll have multiple project bags in in like a traveling, more, like designery tote bag. So anyway, I was surprised when I got home and I realized there were these cute little stitch markers, like a little cat, kind of looks like Hello Kitty. I'm not really much of a cat person, but that's super cute. And I bet I could give it to a knitting friend who really likes cats. So I think I'll probably do that. I also picked up from Pearly Kitten a Notions pouch, and this is something that I have been looking for. I have a pouch that I really like, which is one of those plastic zipper pouches that I actually got customized with my monogram, and I love it. It's perfect, and I actually like being able to see through it a little bit. I don't know how to explain the fabric, but it's like a plastic with sort of like a woven backing. You might have seen them before. I think people often use them to store art supplies. I will try to take a picture of it and put it on the split screen for you. The problem with that is where the pouch folds on these sides on the bottom, these holes have formed or open up. I think just because of the nature of it's like folded plastic, and so it's not completely sealed at these corners. So I've literally lost things. Like I lost my stitch rescue. I always call it a rescue club, but it's like a, you know, the crochet hook that you use to pick up your stitches that you dropped. I lost that out of the bag. I've lost tapestry needles that through there. And so like, I don't really want to lose my notions. So I think I need something that's maybe made of fabric and fully enclosed. So check out this fabric. It's cows with, I think those are tiger lilies. I just think it's so cute. The proprietor at Pearly Kitten was telling me what a pain these were to fabricate. And she's like, it's a good thing you bought it, because I don't think I'm making any more of them, because it was kind of a hassle to sew them up. So that's kind of sad, but I'm glad that I got one anyway. And I'm sure she'll come up with something else that that is a little bit less painful to make, but still looks great and works just as well. So anyway, this is also from Pearly Kitten Fiber Arts. All right, something I did not have on my bingo card for buying at a fiber festival was earrings. Although I've definitely seen jewelry vendors at these kinds of festivals. I am usually, I don't have a lot of jewelry. I don't wear a lot of different types of jewelry, but these caught my eye, and I just thought they were super unique. And they, I'll just have to show you in order to explain. So these earrings are made of vintage straight metal knitting needles. Can you see? Size 10.5. Much like many of the knitting needles that I inherited from my late grandmother. That's really why I bought these. This totally reminds me of her. It reminds me of the heritage and the nostalgia of knitting that I absolutely love, and is part of why I do this. And the color, as you know, I am a fan of green, as you can see as well. So I just think these are going to be such a fun thing to wear to knit night, and, you know, like a nice kind of everyday piece. And they just look like nice earrings. You know, only if you're really in the know would you know that these are knitting needles. I forgot to tell you where these are from. These are from Blue Heron Farm, which is in Vermont. I think it's near Lake Champlain, or possibly in Lake Champlain in one of the islands and on the lake. So I don't know if they make these earrings in their jewelry, or if they're just a reseller for them, but I just think these are fabulous, and I was surprised to find them. Oh my gosh, they kind of look like champagne glasses in a way too. I mean, you could really go in a lot of different directions with this, not even just knitting. So anyway, I love these earrings and can't wait to wear them. I probably should have even worn them for this video. You wouldn't have seen them though with my hair in the way, but they're great, aren't they? There's one more thing that I bought that is not yarn at the fiber event, the farm fiber event, which is a die kit. Okay, I know I said I'm not a spinner and I don't do other fiber arts things. The one area that I've been a little bit curious about is dyeing. And I'm not saying that I necessarily want to dye yarn on the regular. I kind of just want to know how to dye it, and the different methods that hand dyers employ to get certain effects out of yarn. I feel like it's part of just like becoming more educated about how yarn is made, and when you pick up that skein and it looks a certain way on the skein, what's it going to look like when you knit it up. Anyway, all of that said, this is a simple dye kit. This is not going to create any sort of wild, variegated, speckled yarn. This is indigo dye kit. So this is going to be used whenever I get some certain significant quantity of undyed yarn that I want to dye with indigo. I love the colors that indigo can produce. In fact, I'm going to show you a yarn that you're probably not even going to believe is dyed with indigo. But I kind of want to play with this a little bit and see what my results are. And then I just think to knit up something that you had a part of making would be really cool. And no, I still don't want to spin, but again, never say never. So this is from Hilltop Fiber Arts. And Hilltop Farm is located in Lanesboro, Massachusetts, which is in the Berkshires, where I have a second home. And so always want to support those local farms and local businesses. And I wasn't in need of any of their yarn when I went, so I wanted to try something else. They sell a lot of dye stuffs with natural they use all natural, plants and bugs and all sorts of things like that for all of the dyes for their yarns. And then they sell kits as well. They even sell kits that come with everything you need, including the yarn and the jar and all the instructions, all the little tools and accessories. I haven't even opened this box yet, but I'm pretty sure this is a project that I'm going to want to do with my 10-year-old son, Eamon. And that is actually a really good segue before I show you the yarn that I bought at the Farm Fiber Day, that I forgot to share the finished object that I have for this episode, which was a vest that I made for Eamon. And I don't have it with me right now because he's actually wearing it on his person at school at this moment. And I will show pictures on the screen though. And this is the Serrana kids vest. The pattern is by Sandra Magalhaes. I know I completely butchered it the last time I said it. Her design business is also going to be hard for me to pronounce. She is from Portugal, and her design business is Agasalhos e Bugalhos, and that's probably a little bit closer than the way that I said her name. So anyway, Sandra specializes in patterns for babies and kids, and she has some phenomenal patterns. She has a series of Serrana patterns that utilize this kind of mosaic grid pattern. She has, I know, a pullover. She might have a cardigan, and I know this vest is kind of the latest in that series. Oh, I believe she has a hat too, like a beanie hat. So she did a test knit recently. I think it's still ongoing for a little while longer, but it's not a secret test knit, so I was able to post it today, the day that I'm recording this. I used a combination of a leftover yarn that I had used to knit Eamon's Rhinebeck sweater, and I'll throw up a picture of he and I at Rhinebeck so you can see that gray cabled sweater that was a total labor of love. And so I had leftover of that, and then he picked out a wonderful color changing yarn from Junction Fiber Mill called Making Tracks, and the colorway is called Leaf Peeping, and it was definitely not what I would have picked for him if I was just picking on my own, but it turned out amazing. I think he really he knew what he wanted, and I wanted him to love it, and I think he definitely loves it. I really love this piece. I wish that Sandra would kind of upsize some of her patterns for adults, because I think they're actually really wonderful and really suitable. Like, I would totally wear one of these. I think probably the closest thing that's in my kind of in my view that I've been thinking about, I actually have the yarns for also, is the tessellated slipover or tessellated vest by Andrea Mowry. And so it's kind of making me want to knit that up for myself. I know it's going to be something that takes a little bit of time, but at this point, it's probably a project that I wouldn't undertake until later in the year. But anyway, thank you for letting me just interject that one little finished object that I wanted to share, because I'm really excited about it, and I hope that my son gets a little bit more than a year of use out of it, and a lot of enjoyment as well. Okay, let's talk about yarns. When I arrived at the Russell's Garden Center, the first thing that I came across was the 100 Ravens booth. And coincidentally, 100 Ravens was the first booth that I came across at Rhinebeck. Maybe it wasn't a coincidence, maybe it was more strategic on the vendor's part. 100 Ravens is based in New Hampshire, I believe, somewhere in New Hampshire. And so they're a local-ish hand dyer of yarn. And I'm always really impressed by how many different bases they have, not just, different weights of yarn, but also different fiber compositions and combinations. It really gives you like a good variety for a lot of different use cases of what you might want to knit with their yarn. And they have a lot of colorways that are specific to one particular base, or that they kind of blow out into other bases. And it's cool to see how they might execute that combination of colors, or that even a tonal or a solid color differently on the different yarn bases. 100 Ravens is also known for their gradient cakes with the really, really long gradients and like huge amount of yardage. Like, I think at Rhinebeck, I bought one of those cakes from them, and it was like, it's over 500 yards of yarn. So it's probably going to become a shawl of some sort. But that gradient cake was in particular color scheme. And it's very similar to this color scheme, which is my school colors. So I went to Williams College. This is another connection I have with the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. And this purple and gold color scheme is straight from Williams College. Go Eefs. So this was totally spontaneous and not a planned purchase, but it's a sock yarn, so I think it's probably going to become socks. Certainly, there's no rule that says you have to use sock yarn to make socks. This could make a lovely shawl as well, and I have made shawls out of sock yarn, because I certainly haven't made socks yet, as you might remember if you watched last week's episode, but I'm about to make some socks. This is probably not one or two on the sock list, but I think, and again, this is where like I really want to learn more about yarn dyeing to understand better what this is going to look like when I knit it up. I think what this becomes are really wide stripes. I think when the stripes are smaller, like you see for like a striped sock yarn, for example, the colors are more like running top to bottom, and they're like smaller sections of them. And so I think this is going to be like chunks or fields of color. And so in a sock pattern, those fields might be really large because the area that you're knitting is very small. So it's going to take probably some time for those colors to change. Anyway, that's what I think. But again, like I have a bit to learn about yarn dyeing. So anyway, this base is called Patos. It's light fingering weight. It is a blend of superwash merino and 25% nylon, which is a good thing for making sturdy socks. The colorway is called Starry Night. And again, this is my school colors. So maybe this is something that I will try to knit before my college reunion this summer. I have a lot of yarns in this purple and gold color scheme with ideas of different things that I want to make that I can wear when I go to campus for meetings or reunions or even just to visit. I am very rah-rah about my college, and so I like to show school spirit whenever possible. The other skein of yarn that I picked up is also fingering weight. This is their Yaksha base, which is 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, and 10% nylon, but it's 100% beautiful. I just fell in love with these. Again, it's almost like this, this green one that I showed you before. With these colors, it just kind of vibrate a little bit. So there's a little bit more variation here between the green and the blue and the purple. I think this would look really fabulous with like a silk mohair yarn, maybe like a dark gray yarn running along with it to give it a little halo, but still let sort of these color variations kind of blur together. So I can see this as like a one skein shawl type project with with mohair with it. And it's really soft. I've never knit with anything with yak content before. Honestly, it doesn't feel really much different than maybe something with like a little bit of cashmere. In terms of the percentage, it's only 20% yak. So this is probably not going to help me learn much about knitting with yak. But anyway, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And I bought it for the color, not for the fiber content. Almost forgot to tell you the colorway. It is called Elanth. Goodness, I'm horrible. It's an opera, Gilbert and Sullivan opera. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm apparently very uncultured. I also visited the booth of Foxhill Farm, which is a farm based in Lee, Massachusetts, also in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. And I had heard a lot about their Cormo yarns, how amazingly soft and squishy they were, and what a wonderful farm they ran. And so I went there looking just to touch some of their yarns, and once I touched, I could not leave without taking some home with me. So I picked up 2 skeins, both natural undyed yarns. This first one is 100% Cormo wool. Cormo is a blend, a hybrid of Corriedale and merino wool, and it is like, I can't even describe the squish. Again, I can't send smells. I can't send you textures and feels, but it is so soft and squishy, and it has this airy loft to it. I can't wait to knit something with this and feel like what it feels like. I also, and this is an Aran weight yarn. I bought the Aran weight not because I had some project in mind that I wanted to make that was Aran weight. I got this weight because it felt the best to me with this type of fiber, that it gave me more of that squish, at least in the skein form. I'm sure when you knit up, finer gauge yarns, that the squish is just as satisfying, but I touched this and I couldn't put it down. And this was also the case with this skein. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk to the proprietor when I was there, so I didn't get a chance to ask her questions that I had about this particular yarn. The breed is labeled as Morrit, which I looked up afterwards, and it seems to be some sort of heritage brand. The feel, it's another Aran weight yarn. The feel is very similar to the Cormo. I would say it's slightly less soft, but equally squishy, if that makes sense. It's like the squishiness, the airiness, the loftiness is very, very similar. It might be just slightly less soft than the Cormo. But I think when I use these, I'm going to try to use them together, maybe as some sort of cowl, like with color work, some simple, two-color color work. And again, this is both Aran weight skeins of yarn. I think they're both almost, they're 195 yards each, so it's like a good size skein there, especially for Aran weight yarn. So for some, rainy day project, until I knit them, I'm going to snuggle them because they're just so soft and satisfying. Again, these are from Foxhill Farm, and they are 100% Cormo wool and 100% Morrit wool skeins of yarn. Only one more yarn acquisition to share before we get on to the next part of the agenda. This yarn is from Blue Heron Farm wool, and Blue Heron was the same vendor that I bought those green earrings from. Interestingly enough, the earrings actually go really nicely with this yarn. So this is a hand-dyed yarn dyed with natural dye stuffs, and the material that they use for the dye is actually Japanese indigo. And I was surprised to read and to hear that these were dyed with indigo because, as you can see, it's not blue as you think of indigo, it's green. This really lovely, like minty green color. I don't really know how to describe it. It's not quite minty because it's a little bit more warm, a little more yellowed than mint. Pistachio, maybe light pistachio green. But anyway, I guess the dyer, the proprietor of Blue Heron said that she adds salt to the dye mix, and it creates this color because it absorbs the dye differently from the indigo plant. So, and she corrected me when I said indigo. She said Japanese indigo. So I guess Japanese indigo is distinct and different from indigo. But anyway, I love the color. I think the yarn is really interesting. It's a type of yarn I haven't really knit with before. It is spun, but like lightly spun, and it's double twisted. So it's a single ply of yarn, but it's twisted on itself. It's pretty soft. It doesn't feel scratchy to me at all. It may not be totally next to skin. Again, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this. I could be mixing it with other types of yarn, but I really, I just, again, couldn't walk away without taking this yarn with me. So it's from Blue Heron Farm wool, and it's a worsted weight yarn. Each one of these is 130 yards, so I definitely have a little bit of flexibility on what I can do with this. That is all the yarn and all the acquisitions that I had from Farm Fiber Day. There were a couple of honorable mentions that I wanted to just give voice to, that I didn't buy anything from, but there were reasons why I didn't buy anything from them, namely because I've already got something from them recently, or that I have something coming. So the first is Ashford Heights Farm, which is based in Western Massachusetts as well. And I had bought a sweater's quantity of yarn from them in the New England Farm and Fiber Festival back in, when was it? February? I think it was in February. And I really love, they also have really wonderful fabricated products such as bath mats, and they were selling beautiful sweaters that were made with their yarns. I bought a bath mat from them, and it's absolutely beautiful. But my friend Erika Field of Grapefruit Gardenia Designs actually had a pattern launch in collaboration with Ashford Heights, and it is called the Mending Fences Cowl. And she used their Longwool yarns in this design. And Erika is very much an expert on farm fiber and farm yarns. And so I'm learning a lot by being friends with her and also watching her podcast. She has a wonderful podcast called Knit Kind, which you can find on YouTube. And I'll put her information in the show notes as well. And I'll show her design on the screen. But she is really, really thoughtful and mindful about her design process in matching the type of yarn and the type of wool with the design elements of her patterns. And so this particular pattern was really designed with this particular type of long wool yarn in mind. And that's not to say that you can't make this pattern with other types of yarns. In fact, she's making a sample right now in like a superwash wool or some more commercial wool, but it's amazing how different it looks when you use different types of yarns. So again, it's really great to, whether you are a promoter of, and a sort of an advocate for farm yarns or not, I think it's really important and helpful to have, some education about what all the different types are, because, each different type of fiber and type of yarn and type of sheep breed and all of these different factors really do make a difference in the thing that you're knitting or the thing that you're designing. So go check out this pattern. It's a really wonderful pattern. It's knit up in a rectangle and then seamed together, between like the short side and the long side, I think. But it's got a really wonderful message too, as does most things that Erika designs. Again, she's like very thoughtful about her inspirations, and everything is done with meaning and nothing is random. And she's super talented and very lovely. And again, I always learn a lot from her podcast. So check out Knit Kind on YouTube. Another vendor that I didn't have a chance to chat with because she wasn't in the booth when I was in the area was Bloom Woolen Yarns, and again, based in Western Massachusetts. And her yarns are absolutely incredible. She, I think she works with the Green Mountain Spinnery in Vermont to spin all the yarns, and she's done a really good job of curating and sourcing. She has some from her own farm, but she also sources wool from other places. And she has curated a really interesting collection of yarns in different weights, in different fiber compositions, and her dyes are just to die for. And again, all using natural dye stuffs. And you wouldn't believe the colors she can come up with. I'll have to show some of my pictures on the screen because it's just so lovely. I didn't buy anything from Bloom Woolens this time because I actually subscribe to their farm. I don't know what they call it. It's a yarn CSA. So it's like buying a farm share, but it's for yarn. So like, isn't that brilliant for us knitters? It is shipped out 6 times a year, so roughly once every 2 months. And every season of yarn, you receive like a substantial amount of yarn. There's 2 different sizes. You can pick like a small or a large, and you get like a seasonally appropriate yarn. And you can choose, there's an option when you sign up, you can get just the natural undyed yarn, or up to 3 out of 6 of those shipments, you can choose to have them custom dyed. And you can send, whatever your inspiration is. If you have a particular pattern that you think you want to make, or you really like something you saw on the website, you can just send that to her and she will custom dye it and send it to you. I just had signed up for this at the beginning of the year, and I'm really excited about, learning more about these types of yarns and getting the opportunity to kind of sample and try them. And I like the idea of being able to kind of custom dye things to my specifications based on what I think I might want to do with the yarns. So I didn't think I needed to buy anything extra from her, but I'm always, checking out what she has and thinking like, ooh, I wonder if I'm going to get this next for my next shipment. So I know I'm getting a DK weight yarn this month, and I think it might be their Pioneer yarn. So I am excited to figure out what I'm going to do with that. This doesn't really have anything to do with the Farm and Fiber Day. This is an acquisition that I made yesterday at my local yarn store, which is the Unruly Stitch in Weston, Massachusetts. And the reason for this acquisition is that my mom recently decided that she wants to try knitting again for the first time in almost 50 years. So that would mean she hasn't knit since before I was born. And she recently fully retired from her career as a nurse, as a registered nurse. And she called me the other day and she was like, I'm kind of bored. And I said, Mom, you need a hobby. And I said, I have some ideas for you. And I know she's really worried about her arthritis in her hands. But I told her that you really just need to try and see, everyone has their limitations and their preferences as a knitter, and you just need to learn by trying, what is going to work for you, what's not going to work for you. You might need to take more frequent breaks. You might not be able to knit for as long. Maybe you won't be able to knit with certain types of yarn or certain, smaller gauges of yarn or smaller needle sizes. So, but there's so many things I know that she's going to be able to do. And she has a almost 1-year-old grandson who is my nephew, who I've been knitting for the past year plus. And she's going to definitely start with a project for him. And so I wanted to get her a little starter kit of notions and little, bits and bobs of things that I think she'll need when she's getting started as a knitter, because you really take for granted, all the stuff I've accumulated over the years. You can take for granted the fact that it's there. I know she has like sewing kit type things laying around, so I didn't necessarily pick up anything like that, but starting with a great notions bag. So I think this is technically a pencil pouch, but it's from Emma Ball. And the fabric is like a coated cotton. So it has a glaze to it, which will make it, I think, very durable, maybe even like water resistant, which is great. And it has like a cute lining too, this little striped seersucker type lining. And lots of goodies that I put inside for her, most of which I also bought at the Unruly Stitch, but a couple, which I'll mention, are just things that I had laying around that were extra or duplicative that I didn't really feel like I needed. So this is a little kit that I put a couple little extra things in here, but it is a set. I'll take out the things that I added so I can show you. So it's a set of stitch markers that I think are shaped like, I don't know, cats or dogs. Can you see? Little ears on them. And it also comes with these little heart stitch stoppers that you can put on the ends of your needles to keep your stitches from falling off. And it comes in this useful little case, and it has the logo of my local yarn store on it. Of course, you have to have the tapestry needles for weaving in your ends. Very important. And I always just keep mine in these little tubes. These are from Clover. I find that they get lost a lot less frequently this way. Little measuring tape. This is much cuter than my measuring tape that I have. Mine doesn't really have any particular design. It's just a tape that's like folded upon itself, and you squeeze the center to retract it, which is it's pretty cool. I thought it was a cute. That's the barcode. I thought it was a cute design. It's kind of like a faux leather fabric. Again, I think that's going to really hold up well being tossed in and out of a bag. Got to have the crochet hook stitch fixer. That is essential. I always panic when I don't know where that is because, yeah, when you don't know where it is, it's when you need it, right? The locking stitch markers, I always just go with these, like, you know, most basic Clover kind. I find that these colors stand out on a lot of yarns, and you know, they're multi-purpose. I don't need to explain to you probably like how useful and important these are. What else do I have in here? A couple things that I threw in from my stash is this little gauge checker. I think it came with one of my interchangeable needle sets, and I have a few of these laying around, so I don't certainly need all of them. So, you know, this is the one that tells you what size your needle is, and it has like a 2-inch gauge finder. I usually just measure with the measuring tape, but it's useful for what it is for sure. And then I also happen to have this travel size of wool wash. It is the Soak brand wool wash, and the scent of this one is Wild Mint. This is one of the ones that I use. I think the other one, I usually use this one for like things for men and boys, and then the other one I use is called Celebration. It's like a pink. I think the outside color is pink, but I love this little travel size. So I might have to make her share this with me when I go, but so I'm actually going to see her starting this weekend. We're going to be on vacation together next week in the Caribbean, and so I'm going to give all of this to her then, and she's going to knit a swatch for her project, and we're going to block it because I have a sneaking suspicion that when she knit in the past that she was only working with acrylic yarns and not blocking her knits at all. So we're going to learn a lot, and I'm going to help her get going again with knitting. I think she's probably an English style knitter, so I'm going to be completely useless when it comes to technique, but I really strongly believe that the way that you knit is something that is very personal and that just needs to be developed on your own. Like figuring out what works best for you and your hands is really the best way to do it. I knit continental style, but to be honest with you, I don't think I was taught to knit continental style. It was something that I just figured out on my own, that it felt more comfortable than the way that I was taught. And I didn't know there was a name for it. I just figured out somehow that I could carry the yarn on with my left hand and use my needle to kind of, you know, pick it. Is that what it's called? Yes, I'm a picker, I guess. So, you know, I think, again, it's individual, it is personal, and I'm excited to see where her knitting journey goes and all the things that she will make, and hopefully it will bring her joy and keep her busy in her retirement. Ooh, I also have these adorable heart-shaped stitch markers that are from a set that I bought from Katrinkles, at the New England Farm and Fiber Festival. And I think it came with like 5 or 6 different heart shaped, they're all these sort of like laser cut hearts in different colors and different materials. I don't need 5 or 6 of them, so I am gifting these 2 to my mom, and I'm going to put them in that little stitch marker container. You really need that special beginning of round marker. I think having pretty things to look at when you're knitting just makes the process that much more special and that much more fun. So that's all I have for you today. My plan for next week is actually to film from our vacation, which will be really interesting. I bought a microphone, so I'm gonna experiment with that a little bit. Where I record here, I'm sure it would sound better if I used a microphone, but there's a lot of soft fabrics and there's carpeting underneath my feet, and so I think the acoustics are pretty okay here. But I think when we're there, I'm going to have a lot of echoey spaces, a lot of hard surfaces to contend with, and I'm going to need that lavalier microphone. So I'll hopefully get that in working order and publish another video next Thursday. And I'm going to review with you, it'll probably be more short and sweet than this one. I'm going to review with you my travel works in progress, and I'm still making my final decisions on what those are going to be. There's probably going to be 2, outside chance of there being 3 projects. So more to come on that. And thank you again for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed my recap of Farm Fiber Day and my kit that I put together for my mom. I will list out all these items. I think it's nice to have a checklist of, like a starter kit for a new knitter. I think that makes a great gift. And of course, if you are a new knitter, it makes a good thing to buy for yourself as well. So anyway, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.